Hello and welcome to Sex Ed Sundays with Dr. Sonya Maya. That is me. I post every Sunday about psychology, sex, and relationships. So if you like that kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe and turn on those bell notifications. I want to talk about circumcision today, the pros and cons of being circumcised versus not being circumcised. I've heard and read a lot of myths about circumcision, and every time I post about circumcision on my TikTok or Instagram, I get a lot of comments of people that get very heated about the topic, but also spread a lot of misinformation. So I want to talk about what the research says about facts and myths related to being circumcised or being uncircumcised. First myth I want to get into is that it makes it look bigger when you snip it. So circumcised men have bigger appearing penises than uncircumcised. It actually doesn't make you look bigger to snip it. It's removing skin, the foreskin. I believe that I first saw something like this on South Park in this particular episode.
Not going to cut it off. We're just going to snip it so that it looks bigger.
And then they're like,
oh, hey, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. Yeah, I want to get a circumcision too.
I love that show. Really funny old episode. Something important to keep in mind. When you are uncircumcised and you have an erection, the skin retracts, meaning you can't really tell that you're uncircumcised when you are hard in most cases. It's more obvious when you're flaccid, when you're not erect, because the skin will show, but typically when you get a hard on, the skin retracts back and it looks like a penis would look if it was circumcised. Yes, when uncircumcised, it might look a bit bulkier, or it might have this bit of like an extra skin type look, kind of like this picture of Squidward's nose, or this Adventure Time character right here. But overall, when it is hard, it isn't as noticeable. One fact about circumcision, it is a minor surgical procedure. Most of the time, parents will choose whether or not a baby gets circumcised, and it is very common in the Jewish culture, which you may already know. It's also very common among Muslim communities as well to circumcise. In Western cultures, it's practiced for medical or cosmetic reasons, but a lot of people do actually end up getting it in adulthood for reasons I'll get into later. If you take a look at statistics in the US, approximately 71.2 to 77% of men in the US are circumcised. For Israel, it's about 91.7%. For the UK, it's only 20.7%, a lot less common in the UK. In the Netherlands, only 5.7% of men are circumcised. And I put a link below to a chart in terms of these statistics if you're curious about the percentages of other countries. In terms of clothing issues, one fact about having a foreskin and being uncircumcised is you're more susceptible to zipper injuries, meaning you're trying to put your pants on or your jeans on and you get things stuck in there, which sounds very painful. Definitely reminds me of that one movie, Something About Mary. I think I watched that movie when I was really young and I was told to cover my eyes in that particular part.
No, it wasn't like it was a well thought out plan.
You know, there really does seem to be an awful lot of skin.
When you are circumcised though, your penis skin might get kind of dry. There might be kind of chafing going on. So it's recommended to wear loose pants and loose underwear so that you don't experience that discomfort. One of the biggest myths that I have read and heard is that it is unhygienic to have foreskin or to be uncircumcised. Bottom line here is it does take more effort to clean, but as a whole, it's not unhygienic to have that extra skin. There is something called smegma that can accumulate under the foreskin if you don't clean it properly due to bacteria, dead skin cells, and oil building up. If you don't properly clean under your foreskin, it could lead to a bad smell and irritation caused by balanitis if bacteria and dead skin cells get stuck under there. So you definitely want to make sure you clean it. And if you're struggling with balanitis or any other kind of smegma, you definitely want to talk to a doctor, seek medical intervention. If you're struggling with that, then things like detergent or underwear, that might lead to chronic pain and discomfort. The myth that having a foreskin is less hygienic than not having a foreskin really reminds me of the myth of having pubic hair being unhygienic. And I talked about this in my video about facts and myths about pubic hair if you want to watch that one after this. According to doctors and research, having pubic hair is actually considered more hygienic because the pubic hair is there to protect your genitals from bacteria, from anything that might land on it. As long as you keep your pubic hair area clean and hygienic, just like foreskin, then there's nothing unhygienic about it being present. I have read some research that states that if you have a foreskin, then you're more likely to get a UTI or other infections. Although it's rare, if you have an uncircumcised penis, you're more likely to get penile cancer. This is really rare though, and it develops in the foreskin if someone has a family history of penile cancer. And if you have a poorly functioning immune system, then in those very rare cases, circumcision might be beneficial just to avoid the possibility of getting penile cancer. One fact I just learned about foreskin that I find very fascinating, and I didn't know this before, was that apparently a lot of women report that when they have sex with a man that has foreskin who's uncircumcised, the skin during the penetration, the extra skin there, causes a rib sensation, which actually can be a lot more pleasurable for some women. Apparently a lot of condom companies try to replicate the rib sensation with the shape of the condom. That's why you might see like rib condom, for example, or you might see some sex toys that are ribbed. It's because apparently with uncircumcised penis, the way that it penetrates causes that rib sensation, and that might feel better. So let me know what you think about that, because I was like, whoa, that's so interesting. I didn't think about it like that. So a man with a circumcised penis might actually not be able to provide that rib feeling. So maybe that's something that women in the UK are more familiar with, because most men, as I said before, in the US are circumcised. So, Research shows that there's a lot of men who are uncircumcised who struggle with sexual dysfunction such as premature ejaculation. Premature ejaculation is one of the most common sexual dysfunction among all countries. And according to one study that I read, pain during intercourse was 64% more prevalent among uncut individuals, and premature ejaculation improved for 62.7% of men that got circumcised as an adult. So they were struggling and finishing too fast, and then they decided to get circumcised, and 18 months later, they were able to see improvements in their premature ejaculation. If you are someone who is uncircumcised and you're finishing too fast, this actually makes a lot of sense to get circumcised in a lot of cases, because so many studies have shown at this point that men who are uncircumcised, too sensitive, they get circumcised, all of a sudden they're able to perform in the way that they want to. In another 2011 study, 47 men with premature ejaculation issues got circumcised, and 95.7% of them were able to better control their ejaculation afterwards. On the other hand, there are men who report a loss of sensation or a reduction in sexual pleasure after circumcision. So removing the foreskin, it does take away a piece of skin that contains millions of highly sensitive nerve endings. So you are risking losing more sensitivity. But for some men, that might actually be a good thing, depending on sexual dysfunction, depending on maybe there's too much sensitivity. I want to decrease that. Therefore, circumcision can help. What you're doing when you're getting circumcised as an adult, you're removing free touch corpuscular receptors. These nerve endings are responsible for the heightened feelings of pleasure during sexual intercourse. And I've heard people that are uncircumcised talk about how they are able to experience so much pleasure, and they wouldn't want to get that removed because they like being able to experience all that pleasure. I mean, I don't blame them. If I have a lot of pleasure from someone stimulating my nipples, then maybe I wouldn't want that to be removed, because I like having those nerve endings in my nipples. So in terms of being circumcised versus uncircumcised, it's not a black and white issue where you can say one is better than the other. A lot of men really enjoy having those extra nerve endings. I have heard a lot of people that are uncircumcised feel like it's wrong for people to get circumcised.
You don't just chop off somebody's fireman.
This is a very controversial issue, especially because it's such a big part of culture, such as Jewish culture or Muslim culture. And given that it is part of that culture, I can see how that would turn into a lot of arguments. Let's say a Jewish individual gets married or wants to have babies with another individual who's from the UK, for example, and part of their culture is to leave it alone. We don't do circumcision. What are you talking about? And I could see how a lot of people might get heated, because people might feel like, oh, the man or the baby should have the opportunity to decide for themselves. I personally don't really know how I feel about that, so you let me know what you think about that below. Part of me wants to lean more towards the allowing the person to have the choice, because there are a lot of men who decide to get circumcised as an adult for reasons I talked about. For example, they don't want that much sensitivity. Part of me thinks, yes, maybe the individual with the penis should be able to decide, but it is very nuanced and very controversial, and I am from a Jewish family, so I don't know. I guess I'll worry about that when I decide to have babies, and if one of them has a penis, I'll really have to think about it, right? Let me know what you think about this topic below, and please do hit that thumbs up below, because apparently it really helps in terms of the algorithm to get this out to more people, which is really hard for me because I talk about sex on here, which is a very taboo subject. But am I gonna stop? No, I'm not, because I'm very, very passionate about destigmatizing these topics. As always, please make sure to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, take care of your tacos and burritos, and make safe yet pleasurable decisions and decisions. See what I did there? I'll see you next week for another Sex Ed Sundays. Goodbye.